if you need any recordings. Yes.
Okay, welcome. Well, we're going to get started. Thank you so much for coming here today. We're glad that we're going live. Yes? I hope so, that we're on social media. My name is Representative Andrea Tupola. I'm the Minority Leader for the State House Legislature, and I'm glad that my Minority Caucus members are here. So after I introduce our caucus package, each of them will be coming up to share a little bit about what we put together as a caucus to work on this year. So our caucus package is about reconnecting the people of Hawaii by making our government more accessible, more affordable, and more accountable. Specifically, when we talk about accessible, the portion that I'll be talking about is equal funding for all charter schools. I know that we've talked about it a little bit, and I mentioned it in my speech on Wednesday, but in the HRS Section 302, it actually states that there should be equal funding for all public school students. But right now, charter schools educate 11,000 students. Last year, the DOE reported that we saw a 1% decrease in DOE students and a 5% increase in charter school students. If you've ever been to some of the charter schools in our state, they have very unique, creative, out-of-the-box, different ideas, and school choice has been a trend that our state is moving towards. So by having a bill that requires the auditor to look into the legality of why public schools aren't getting equal funding for CIP, why are charter schools not getting equal funding for special education? Why are charter schools not getting equal funding for federal grants? And so that bill is going to help us to make our government more accessible for all students and all families that want to pursue different modes of education, but all public education. So I'm going to turn the time over to Representative Lauren Matsumoto, who represents the North Shore. Please put your hands together for Representative Matsumoto.
Thank you so much. Representative Tupola was talking about equal funding for our public education. On the same note, we need equal opportunity for everybody in our state to be able to have their voices be heard in the legislative process. So we're proposing to be able to have video conferencing so everybody, whether you're on the neighbor islands or in rural communities, can have your voice be heard in our process. And that's the most important thing. When you're sitting in the committee hearing, having people come in and testify or being able to hear what their thoughts are, that's how we make our decisions. There's no way we can be experts on every single thing that comes through our committees. And so being able to have everybody have their voice be heard is important. Currently in Hawaii, 30% of the population lives in the neighbor islands and doesn't have the opportunity to be able to testify in person. There's 4 other states that are currently doing audio-visual testimony. We have Alaska, Nebraska, Nevada, and Washington. And I believe Hawaii can also have a similar model. And that's what we're proposing today, that everybody has the opportunity to have their voice be heard. On that note, we're going to have Representative Ward come up and talk to us about the permitting process.
Aloha mai kako, aloha. Aloha. How many of you have stood in line at the post office? Okay, let me get a little bit closer now to you. How about getting your car registered? But how about getting a building permit? How about how long it takes you to get a building permit? The number of ADUs that we have standing in line, the shortage of housing that we have, 65,000 units, DBED has said. But you know, the permitting process takes 17 months. The point that I'm trying to make is that we have put permitting into permitting purgatory. That is unacceptable, and this caucus is going to be rallying to speed that up. I was just upstairs with Mayor Caldwell. There's a permitting process for even the homeless on the North Shore with 12 single-family mothers single-family mothers with children who for the last 2 years cannot get a permit to just house those homeless, which a church is going to pay all the money for. The point is, we can do better. And I know if I talked to you about last Saturday in January 13, when you all said there's a missile coming, your government can do better, and we certainly can get out of permit purgatory. Thank you. And last but not least, yes. Oh, she's.
So next one is Representative Egan.
We have from the beautiful place of Kailua, Representative Cynthia Thielen. Cynthia?
Good morning, afternoon. I'm going to talk about general excise tax on food and how we can do this better. I'd like to take the bite out of this, take the bite out of food, and bite could be better if tax eliminated. Your average family of 4 loses about $650 a year from the general excise tax on food. We're one of the few states in the nation that still tax that essential food for families and individuals. So my whole point is that the Republican caucus is standing for bite, better if the tax eliminated. And I hope that we'll have a lot of support from the public, because that's what we need, are the voices to say, hear that bill, pass that bill, and let working families and others be able to keep around $650 in their budget that right now is going into government. Thank you. Oh, sorry about that. I want to introduce my colleague from Eva Beach, who really needs no introduction.
Thank you. Cynthia, I've got 8 kids, so if you could just put that food over there, I'll be glad to take it home afterwards. Clearly, and I support that bite. Clearly, I'm undernourished. You can see that. But I'm here to talk about veterans issues. She's laughing so much. Talk about veterans issues. We've introduced a measure that we hope that will help people hire veterans. You can't compel people to hire people of military service, but we feel that those who have sacrificed and their families put it all on the line for us. If there's some way that we can encourage the private sector, and that's what we're basically doing, encouraging the private sector to give these folks a look at a good hard look-see, and you can't give them priority technically over other folks, but if you can really do the best you can to give them a good look-see, that's what we're looking to do. So that's the intention of this veterans measure. So, and I was a Marine. I don't go by years. 100 pounds ago. That's all I'm going to say. All right. Thank you. Aloha. God bless you.
I'm going to ask my caucus members to stand here. We're actually going to take some questions right now. I would like to say also that today we all signed unanimously a resolution to ask the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency to improve their protocols, as well as look into, if this incident had happened on a school day, are our schools equipped and ready in the event of an emergency to handle what we would have went through if it was real. So that resolution is out there. We have it all signed by all 5 caucus members. And at this time, we'll be taking questions. You can direct it to any one of the caucus members. If it's a general question, then I'll try my best to answer the question.
I have a question on one of your tax bills.
Sure.
Require a 2/3 majority to raise taxes. Given that there are so many Democrats in both chambers, do you think that if this bill were passed, it would have an impact in the immediate future?
That's a very good question, because we represent 10% of the legislature, so we should say 90%. But generally, as a rule of thumb, the Congress and other bodies that say a supermajority is 2/3, so we were rather traditional. But being that we're 10%, maybe it should be 90% approval, because I don't think anybody wants to see any taxes in this election year.
Yeah, I do think it would, particularly if you go back to the rail debate. So there were some folks who were on the fence, right? So they could leverage their position to get a yes vote, which would mean more inside the building intrigue and wheeling and dealing. But yeah, it would make a difference, absolutely.
Good question.
Other questions?
In your bill to expand the public records law, you mentioned an incident involving the city and county of Honolulu. Is that related to the civil case lawsuit sitting before the Hawaii Supreme Court?
Can you say it one more time louder?
Yeah. So in your bill related to expanding the public records law, you mentioned an incident with the city and county of Honolulu, budget-related documents. Was that related to civil beats lawsuit?
Yes.
I don't know which one. Is that yours?
So this bill was in regards to public records, yeah? And it was, your question is whether or not it was in regards to Civil Beat suing over that law, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it absolutely was related to that. And we decided to pursue it because we think that it's correct, that we should have more accountability by having that open transparency.
Okay, and I have one last question about the video conferencing bill. So as you know, the Senate has a similar program. It's much more limited, but few people use it. So my question is, did you look at their model when crafting your bill? And also, do you think if there were a broader video conferencing program, more people would use it?
Do you want, or, yeah?
Answer now.
Okay, so I did not look at the Senate bill, but I can say that if there was a broader model, what they currently run on the island of Hawaii is that they have one center in Waimea, they have one center in Hilo, and when you actually go to those centers to testify, if you look at the Kona City Council room, you can actually see the face of the testifier and interact with them, so you can ask questions. So I think for me, a broader model would be two-way interactive as opposed to just showing it one way, which may or may not be the case if we pursue means of telebroadcasting that just show the testifier. So to answer your question, I hope it broadens, but I think starting with at least anywhere where people can access us or share testimony from remote locations would be a good starting point.
Just go up to one thing. You're Civil Beat, right? The Republican caucus has stood with the media for the last, well, as long as these issues have been before the legislature. And we have always been in support of first open government and then media's access to government and records and information. And we've stood strongly in support of that, and we'll continue to do that.
Going back to the video conferencing question, I've sat in on committees when we've tried the pilot program of a few people being able to do video conferencing, and usually it's a representative or senator who rallies people in their community to be able to testify on a particular issue or bill. What I think needs to happen is being able to testify on every single bill that goes through a committee, not just once in a while, being able to have it for all committees on both the Senate side as well as the House of Representatives, so people have the opportunity not just on a particular bill, but on anything they think is important.
One brief footnote. This is not rocket science. We should have done this years and years and years ago, and every year I speak on the floor of the House, we should be a C-SPAN in Hawaii the way it is for the nation. Any hearing, any issue that's before the public, any policy issue, we should be able to do it. I have a sister-in-law in Johannesburg, South Africa. I can sit here and I can Skype with her, I can put it on my phone right now, and I can talk to them. Why can't we do it in Hawaii? Duh, this bill is catching up with what we should have done historically long ago.
Do we have any other questions from the public or even people attending the conference that actually work here? No? Do you have a question? No, you're good. Andy? Okay, well, thank you so much for being here today. We actually do have copies of our caucus package. If you want a copy of the actual PR sheet, it's a one-pager. And we hope that everyone is able to join us as far as asking for the committees to hear these bills. And then once they get a hearing, asking people to come and testify so that we can see them passed into law. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you, caucus members.